But going now on to the Nottingham Forest game at the City Ground, as I mentioned previously, Nottingham Forest are the only team to have beaten Liverpool this year, and that was at Anfield. That wasn't even at the City Ground. Nottingham Forest did draw against Liverpool at the City Ground, but the game that they actually beat Liverpool was at Anfield. And playing, as you all are hopefully all aware, playing Nottingham Forest at the City Ground is extremely tough for teams that are fully healthy, let alone ones that don't have a full-fledged attack. And the problem is, as I said, I don't know where the goals are going to come from. The fact that this last game against a team like West Ham, which, yes, Nottingham Forest tend to play more open than Nottingham Forest play more open than West Ham does, but the thing is that Nottingham Forest just saw what West Ham did against Arsenal, and how sitting back and creating the low block and making sure especially that Mikel Merino isn't able to make those runs in the box and have a free run to be able to try to get his head on one of those chances or get a foot out in that regard to try to put it in the back of the net. But as I said, they saw what West Ham doing, and they're probably going to try to play a similar style aspect and try to hit us on the counter, which is what I think West Ham, which did really well, was essentially establishing the low block and being able to effectively counter that with the Wan-Bissaka cross into the box. Bowen heads it in. And similarly to Bowen, Bowen is not the shortest guy in the world, but he's not anywhere as tall or as good in the air as a Chris Wood, who's having the season of his life for Nottingham Forest this season and is arguably in the conversation, at least for this particular season, as one of the best strikers in the Premier League. So it's going to be very difficult for Arsenal to try to contain him, as well as contain their fast wingers with Alanga, as well as Callum Hudson-Odoi, who similarly are having revitalizations of their careers from both their times previously at Man United with Alanga and Chelsea with Callum Hudson-Odoi, who they've basically become revitalized players under Nuno Espirito Santo in this Nottingham Forest side. And effectively, that instance, that's going to have to deal with how Arteta is going to have to line up in that regard in the defense, especially now that Lewis Skelly is suspended for 3 games. What I think is going to end up happening is Timber's going to be moved over from right back to left back, and then we might see the reintroduction of Benjamin White into the starting 11. And at least I think, yes, there are going to unfortunately be points where Callum Hudson-Odoi or Alanga might be able to easily get past both Timber and Benjamin White, but I think they'll do a much better job than Ricardo Calafiori did. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, with the fact that Arsenal are going to struggling to score goals and probably will struggle to score goals for most of the rest of the season until Martinelli comes back, until hopefully Saka comes back, then maybe the goals will come up. But until then, Arsenal are going to need to figure out some way to score goals. And unfortunately, that possibly means that Arsenal are going to have to try to, people don't like hearing it, but try to get some set-piece goals. And that's why, unfortunately, by taking Calafiori out of the starting lineup, you lose his height. But with Timber, you have a little more defensive stability in that regard. Yes, Calafiori has the potential to score you a wonder goal from outside the box, do something absolutely crazy, but I think Arteta was going to prefer that defensive stability against a team like Nottingham Forest. And the thing is that when you try to do that, as I said, you lose the fact that Arsenal can't score goals. There are also other ways you're going to have to figure out a way, whether that's, for example, taking Declan Rice off the left-sided corner duty to get him in the box because he's at least over 6 feet and has some height and ability in the air, as he has shown throughout his career, both at West Ham and at Arsenal. But, as I said, I think it's going to be interesting to see with what Mikel Arteta does not formation-wise, but essentially how he's going to set up the team in being able to try to help score the goals, maybe get Gabriel in the box more often, maybe even get Saliba in the box more often, get Ben White in the box, get Partey in the box, get Rice in the box, and then just maybe hope that Arsenal aren't going to get hit on the counter, but that's exactly what Nottingham Forest are going to try to do tomorrow. And as I mentioned earlier, Arsenal need to try to learn from the defensive mistakes of the Bowen goal, need to make sure that they try to limit crosses into the box, and also make sure that they track runners and don't let them have free runs into the box. If, for example, Bowen someone tracked him into the box and at least someone tracked him and he was still scored, at least someone tracked him, versus what happened with this goal, no one tracked him and he literally had a free run to go head the ball right in the box. It's probably maybe the easiest goal Jared Bowen will score his entire life, which makes it absolutely unacceptable, especially for a team as good defensively as Arsenal.